Thank you all for joining us today for the April edition of our Brownfield Redevelopment webinar series. This month is Right Sizing Reuse in Small and Rural Communities. We have a very exciting project out in Western Kentucky that we're going to be talking about today. But before we get to the really exciting stuff, I'm going to get into to do my due diligence with these promotional pieces and orienting y'all who may have not come before to one of our webinar series. So we do this series monthly, and it is part of a partnership between myself, Tyler McDaniel, and my organization, Blueprint Kentucky, and the Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet's Brownfield office, who exist in the Division of Waste Management. And this is one of many components that we do to sort of to highlight successful projects like this in the brownfield space, as well as providing resources to get folks up to speed on some of the different concepts and ideas and approaches to this work. We also do a lot of different kind of outreach activities directly in communities. We did a workshop yesterday down in Russell Springs that we call our Brownfields Boot Camp. Not nearly as scary as it sounds. Um, oh, you can see the notes? Well, that's not good. Thank you for letting me know that. Hmm. All right. I'm going to stop the share real quick and figure out what I did wrong. There we go. No notes, no spoilers now, right? Perfect. Um, so yeah, we do a multitude of kind of education and outreach initiatives. We did the Brownfields Boot Camp yesterday in Russell Springs. We have another one of those scheduled, I believe June 3rd in Covington. So if you're interested in coming out, learning more about the process, please join us for those. We're also working on potentially two more in the eastern and western edges of the state this year. So please keep your eyes peeled for that. Um, Within that, we like to usher folks along in this process, sort of in the day to day, but also think about long-term planning and whether that is, equipping your communities and these spaces in ways that can establish long-term community buy-in or better prepare communities to apply for a federal grant if that's applicable to them. So if you're interested in any of that, please reach out to me directly. Um, and I appreciate y'all being here once again. So a little bit of housekeeping. Please place any questions you have into the Q&A, and we'll answer those at the end. I will mark Shelley's question, letting me know about presenter review as answered. And yeah, we'll go through this presentation and then do a little casual conversation. So feel free to throw whatever in there. We will also be recording this. It'll be posted to the Blueprint Kentucky YouTube page that houses our entire catalog of webinars. So if you're interested in other projects and want to draw inspiration from those, or just kind of get a little more in depth with some of these processes or facilitation and planning strategies, please check us out there. Subscribe to our YouTube page, and yeah, follow us wherever you can. So it is my pleasure today to introduce some folks from Barlow, Kentucky, from Ballard County, from the Purchase region, as well as some consultants here in Kentucky who worked on this project. We're going to be hearing from a stellar team consisting of Jerry Pace, Kevin Davis, Rachel Foley, and Sherry Weedman. And yeah, that's enough of me, and I'll hand it over to them for what y'all came for.
Thank you very much, Tyler. We appreciate it. I'm Jerry Pace, Executive Director of the Ballard County Economic Development Board, and it was our pleasure to team up with this great team that we have on this project to turn what was a very historic building, which had become a total eyesore. But we came together through a lot of just so happens. It just things happen and you just take advantage of it. The gentleman that owned the Barlow School was a dear friend of mine, and I knew he had some plans, and he didn't pan out for him, and so I reached out to him to see if he would be interested in us taking it over because I had spoken with West Kentucky, Kentucky West, Kevin Davis, and he had some plans and things he could do. that worked out. We got a hold of the building, and then we discovered we made some mistakes, and we shouldn't have. Uh, we should have found out how do you do these things before you just go out. It's just not a regular business as usual. And I totally encourage anybody that's thinking about getting into Brownfield, do your homework first. And my best guess is that Tyler and his team is a great place to start. But moving on with the reason that I, as the econ board and my board decided we move forward this because we made a conscious decision that in economic development, you don't normally worry about housing, but that became our number one priority because we didn't have any housing. Therefore, we had no way to get jobs and get people. If you don't have housing, you can't have people. If you don't have people, you can't get jobs. And people want entertainment and quality of life. And that's why we thought that this Brownfield project would be such a great thing for us. And then we partnered then with the great people that we did, being the Kentucky West Incorporation and Kevin Davis. And then we were able to team up with Rachel Foley with the PAD office. The PAD office is a great opportunity for grants, how to write them, how to get them. They have a wealth of information on other grants and other places and financial institutions that they can help you get money with. So every ad office in the state would be able to do that. And then we really lucked up and found a great private partner in Tetra Tech. And they were able to help us with our Brownfield people and Sherry Weedman. And it has just been a delight to work with them. But I have had the actual easiest part of that job, and that was just trying to put all the pieces together and get out of their ways. And just like that, being the introductory to this is also the easiest part because they've got all the meat that you need to hear. And with that, I'm going to throw it over to Kevin. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to be here. And if we can ever help, let us know.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. Of course, y'all know that anytime you're dealing with the economic development of anywhere, that's a key ally in whatever you're doing. So we appreciate everything they've done. And plus, Jerry's a very dear friend. And I'll also give him credit for getting me in the middle of all of this. So thanks a lot, Jerry. I'm going to give you a little bit of history about how this all happened. Of course, Jerry told you a little bit about the school. It was, as you see there, in 1908 was when the school started. But this building that we're looking at now, that was built in around 1935 as best we could figure out. So it closed in 1993, and then the Wilson family took over. Jim Wilson put in it was a farm implement business. He had sold tractors or repaired tractor stuff most of his life. So he was retired, and so he bought the school just because it was available, and then just did what he knew how to do. Well, Jim passed away in 2010, and a lot of time I call it the generational shift. When one generation dies off, the next generation usually doesn't have the same passions that generation had, and that's obvious in this case. When Jim died, his family already had their path made. They were doing their own careers. Now they own this big building. That what could they do with it? Well, they asked around and tried to find somebody, and there was no luck. Couldn't find any takers. So unfortunately, it started dilapidating. And then it got so bad that they had to put a fence around it. And we jokingly, it's not really a joke, but we jokingly say that they put a fence around it, and the fence was worth 3 times what the building was worth. So now we at least own a really nice fence. So that's kind of where this thing started on the ugly side of it. But if you want to look at the next slide, Tyler, what do you do with a building? You know, you got to have some kind of an idea. Jerry asked me one day, just a casual conversation. He said, "Kevin, you got any ideas what we could do with this building?" And I said, "Sure, yeah, with enough money, there's lots of ideas. I got a couple ideas." So we went and looked at this building, and it was raining, and it was in the fall, so the leaves were falling, everything. Well, when we walked in the building, it didn't stop raining inside. It was raining just like it was outside. So we're walking around this scary-looking building, and we look up, and Jerry says, "Oh, my God, And I looked up and said, "Oh my God." And he said, "Are we looking at the same building?" And I said, "Well, I was seeing the positive because, I'd already conditioned myself to see, yeah, the bones look good on this thing. So if all the ugly was gone, we'd have a really nice start to something special." So we wandered around, and that was kind of the kickoff for Jerry and I on the physical end of the building. But then when the reality of it starts kicking in, okay, how does this work? Well, Jerry, like he said, is good friends with the Wilson family. And so he started working on his end. I started working on my end with our nonprofit, the Kentucky West Inc. And so we decided there may be something we could do with the building. So now how do we go through the process of getting the building? So we thought, well, this is pretty simple. We'll get the lawyers involved and they'll just take care of that part of it. Well, like Jerry said a while ago, there was a couple of areas that had we had the information, we would have done things a little different. For example, we didn't know really about the asbestos and leaded paint and all the things. We knew there had been a study on it, but we didn't really have the information. So we kind of jumped the gun on my part a little bit specifically. So I started asking questions maybe I should have asked earlier. And I bumped into one of our magistrates that had worked on another project with me. And he just happened to have a card in his billfold when I was telling him about this. And it was Lynn True with the Brownfields organization. And so I called Lynn, and then, of course, she turned me over to Sherry. And that was the best thing that happened to us at that point because Sherry had all the information we needed, started guiding me around like a lost puppy. And so as we went through our process here of, we got to the Brownfield part of it, we realized that our little organization wasn't big enough to apply for a grant. And we weren't really where we could even get the EPA involved on the Brownfield part of it. You have to own the building for a certain period of time. There's some qualifiers that they can share with you if you're in that situation. But anyway, we had to donate the building. And thankfully, the EDC, Economic Development Board, was willing to take ownership of the building. And then they made me sign a contract that we would take it back. So that's how that kind of started to even be eligible for the environmental study. So then they did the environmental study. So if you want to go into the next picture, the next slide. This is just so you guys have a picture of what me and Jerry started with. That, like that center picture, you can't even see the trees that got the building. So I had to get one of our local guys come in there and clear some trees so we could even get to the building. And all right, so if you'll go to the next slide, Tyler. Go the other direction, I think. Okay. All right. So yeah. So when the assessment part of it, I want you to see the team here. On the left there is Lynn, and Lynn has since retired. So she helped get all this started. And then she ran for the hills, she told me. So I don't think that was the case, but we're going to remind her to come back and celebrate when we get this thing done. And I think that's Annabelle and Kirsten. Is that right, Sherry? In the center picture there? Make sure everybody gets their...
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And then I think Noah and Haley, I believe, are the names of the ones that were actually doing the assessment. So that gives you an idea of what these guys were doing. This is before we could even think about that it's even going to be safe to use this building. So now if you want to go back one slide, Tyler. All right. So the city of Barlow was required to request the environmental study. That's just the way it had to be. They're the ones that had the most skin in the game dealing with the eyesore that Jerry was talking about a while ago. So then Tetra Tech got involved for the environmental study. So then when we get to the contamination, everything, we know what we've got. So how do you clean it up? Y'all say the size is 45,000 square feet. The total roof is in shambles. So how do you get it cleaned up? So you can have all these plans of what you want to do with it, but till you have a plan to clean it up, it's irrelevant. So we decided we need to, first thing that was available was a loan. And it was, at the time, it was a 50% give back loan with zero interest for, I don't know, up to 20 years or whatever. And again, our little organization was so small, we just knew we couldn't take on a loan. It'd be 5 generations later before we get it paid off. And so we just said, that's not an option. So me and Jerry and my wife Nancy, we put me and Sherry and Jerry and all of us put our heads together, and Sherry and I started talking and really in depth on what really was available. And when you start looking, a lot of things start popping up that seem like they're maybe the right direction, but you get to the fine print, you realize maybe that's just not quite it either. Well, we ended up settling on this loan. The grant was a cleanup, and Sherry, I forget what they actually called it. You might hit on that later, but it's the recovering. So I'll let you get that one after a while. But if you take the roof off, you got to put the roof back on is basically the idea, or it's going to keep raining inside. So when we applied for this grant, EDC had to do the grant because we were so small we couldn't even apply for a grant. So that's where EDC came in. So our mistake, in my mind, turned out to be the best thing that could happen for us. It included one of our stronger organizations that could go after the grant. Well, as they were getting the grant, the application, we needed someone that could help manage the grant. Well, the PAD department, the PADD, Purchase Area Development, they were experts at doing grants and stuff like that, loans and things. So that was a perfect team. Well, EDC had our judge executive is chairman of the board for EDC. So again, this team, just like Jerry said earlier, it kind of formed itself. We didn't just sit down and go, hey, let's do this. We kind of looked at who our key players in our county were, and it turned out that it was right there before us all the time, So we got the EPA. Believe it or not, we were a little skeptical about getting the grant. We asked for $1,081,000, and we were in the back of our minds, we were hopeful and doubtful, but wanted to stay positive. Well, we were awarded the grant. So now you fast forward to the cleanup part of it. You can see the before and after all the trees. Well, it's cleaned up pretty good, but you can walk through it pretty safely now. I'm trying to think the slide to the right there is that's the one, that's the gymnasium. With a little imagination, you can see a stage right there. That was where they had school plays, basketball gym and everything. And you can see a bit of the balcony in the center, the bottom center picture there. All right, go ahead and go to the next slide, Tyler. When we talk about what you want to do with a building like this, it's all theoretical. You can plan and everything, but till you know what you're up against, and now that we've cleaned it up, we start thinking about some of these things that we wanted to do, we probably can do. So we want a training center, and we call it the Recenter. I don't know about you guys, but I have a lot of trouble finding someone to repair something. If I have a lawnmower or a refrigerator or whatever, you just can't take it and drop it off. So here, fix this, like we could in the old days. So now we call the Recenter. It's a repair. If you can't repair it, you repurpose it. Let's take the parts and fix something else, or maybe yard art or whatever. And if you can't repurpose it, you recycle it. So the Recenter is everything that starts with RE. And we've decided that this building is our first project for the Recenter. We're going to revitalize the building. So everyone that works on this building is part of the Recenter already as we get this thing structured. So, all right. So, of course, y'all can read the different things on there. Each one of those, we could talk an hour about each thing that we would like to do, especially when you get down to the audio, video, multimedia, recording studio, movies, and movie set. We are going to make a full-length documentary about this whole project. And we're using all the content right now that we've already got to get that ball rolling. So, all right, let's go to the next slide, Tyler. These are just some examples. These are all, as you probably have guessed, not in Barlow. These pictures are borrowed from the internet to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So one of the things, when you take the roof off of like the cafeteria part of it, we're going to go back with like a greenhouse cover type roof, and we're going to really focus on agriculture. And we're talking about food that you can eat now: lettuce, carrots, tomatoes, things that we don't have readily available in our county. We have plenty of field corn and soybeans, things like that. But we want to help be a kind of a catalyst to get people that want to grow their own food and things like that. So again, it's a training center. We're not going to turn it into a full production type system, but hopefully we'll train people to do things like that. So the appliance repair, welding, things like that. We have a boat yard on another project Jerry's working on, a river port that James Marine, they do a lot of welding. So they have welders and things like that. Sometimes they might need somewhere for training, whatever. Then small engines and festivals, that's more my area is, celebrations, things like that, and flea markets. So that's just an idea of the plans that we're going to be doing with this facility. So, all right, Tyler, next slide. And the Barlow School, a new beginning. And this is where Sherry takes over and kind of tries to explain all the stuff I was just talking about. How we got here.
Thank you, Kevin. Hello, everyone. And I love the way that you just told that story, and Jerry, the way that you came in and introduced the way that this team came together and how we're making it work here. Want you guys to all leave with an idea of anybody can do this. You just have to have the right team put together. And just hearing the passion from Kevin and then the knowledge base and support that Jerry has with the Economic Development Board. And then you're going to hear the rounded out piece from Rachel in the Purchase Area Development District and how they supported the project, to just give you a good example of how you can have a robust team to make it work. Next slide, please, Tyler. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of hit some more technical, boring pieces of exactly how we made it happen with this awesome vision that Kevin and the team has, and an example of the path that we took to inspire what may or may not work for a community or a site like this for you. So the way that it all came to be, whenever Lynn True's card came out of someone's pocket, I guarantee you that happened because she was at a community engagement event trying to get the word out about the Brownfield program and putting these community assets back into reuse in a way that's meaningful to communities and in a way that brings economic development. So she did her job before she left, for sure. Whenever the project came into play, the way that the ownership existed didn't leave the entity that had the property to be eligible for Brownfield benefits and this funding. So she supported through an application that was submitted by the city, because nonprofits and municipalities can ask for targeted Brownfield assessments at no cost. When you reach out to Kirsten O'Leary, who manages the program now, and you request that, the city of Barlow requested that assessment to support a property transaction for an eligible entity to have the property. And so that happened for Ballard County to take the property, and then Tetra Tech was tasked by the state under a master services agreement that we have with them to conduct that phase 1, phase 2 support. So we did that. And as a part of that, we identified that there was asbestos and lead-based paint associated with the building that needed to be dealt with, and then also provided that liability protection that the Ballard County Econ needed to have the property and have the Brownfield benefits and funding access available to them. Next slide, please. So I also want to note that this process, from the time that the state Brownfield program came on board and was requested to assist this project, April 2024. And that's important because we're going to talk about how quick this timeline went. And we're just so thankful for it. We have to talk about it. So we come on, we get the assessment done. And like Kevin was talking about, what do we do next? Now we know what we've got. How do we clean it up? And in the background here, you've got some other entities, private developers, folks that had donated the building initially, and community members, maybe some knowing what's going on, maybe some not knowing what's going on, but a lot of, oh yeah, we'll believe it when we see it kind of thing happening here. Okay. And the visionaries are really trying to put in the work to make things happen. So, Kevin and I are talking about how we're going to make this work and what kind of money do we need? This loan's not going to work for us. It's too big bad. We need free money. And it's like, okay, well, there's free money. It's enormously competitive, but let's take a look at the assets that you have to pull in as a partnership and team to build a strong application. And, we decided to go for it because you got to be a little crazy to get what you want sometimes. And so Tetra Tech supported Ballard County in developing this application for EPA to review for the fiscal year 2025 Brownfield cleanup grant application. opportunity. And so we submitted that in the fall of 2024. And in May 2025, EPA announced that Ballard County was going to be awarded this project to clean up this school. And I also just want to make a quick note that EPA loves revitalizing schools. They know that it's an asset to a community that's very meaningful for generations, and repurposing it in a way that's beneficial to the community is very important to them. So much so that there was a special panel on it in the 2025 National Brownfield Conference in August in Chicago this last year. And they invited this community. It was very freshly awarded, right? It was in May, they were announced to be awarded. The conference was in August, and they invited Ballard County to present at the national conference in a Kicking It Old School panel to talk about, to be a rural example. They had a big Chicago city school example and their revitalization. They were on the back end of theirs, and this one's on the front end. And that room was packed. It was an auditorium, and it was completely packed. So many questions because there's so many rural communities that are in the exact situation that this team's in. But so we're awarded in May, and then Purchase Area Development District came on board as the grant management piece, and Rachel's going to talk about that. But ultimately, Tetra Tech was contracted to be the qualified environmental professional for that cleanup. Next slide. So Kevin's shown you some great reuse plans for them and some examples of that. This is an aerial image that we prepared as part of the application, as well as all the other documentation for the cleanup alternatives documents, everything that's required as a part of this process to make it through. I just wanted to show it here today so you can see how the property exists in the community. So it's not out in the middle of nowhere. It literally sits within residential community of this town. Everybody, it's very close and accessible to everyone in the community still, as it was built and still exists today in this small community. Next slide. So I'm going to turn it over to Rachel to talk about the ways that she's supporting the project, and look forward to any discussion questions at the end.
All right. Thank you, Sherry.
Yes.
Like she said, my name is Rachel Foley, and I'm with the local Purchase Area Development District. And our main job and goal is to help cities and counties and local nonprofits with federal grant applications, and also after grants are awarded, the grant management process. So as everybody has said previously in their presentations, I want to piggyback off of that and just say that it takes a village, and we are very fortunate in our area to have everyone be able to work together and come together for a common goal. And it could not be possibly done without everybody taking on their role and using their expertise. So with that said, that I think it's a huge accomplishment that this grant was awarded, and that application process is not easy. It takes strategy and coordination, and there's a lot of detail that goes into it. But once that award comes in, the work doesn't just stop there. It just shifts. So that's where the purchase ad came in, and we bring in the grant management part of it. So the connection came with our executive director being included in on conversations at the very beginning of it. And like Sherry said, that, and Jerry mentioned, that we come in with the expertise of federal grant management. But also unique to this, I've been here for a little over 4 years, and I had never been part of an EPA Brownfield grant before. So although I have the grant management experience, I was not familiar with Brownfield. So although I'm in a position to lead at this particular moment, I'm also in a position to learn from Sherry and all the others that are involved. So this is a great opportunity for me as well. So one of the first ways that PAD came into this is that we, on the management side of it, we developed and set out to put the RFPs and RFQs out. And then that's when we put that out, and Barlow decided to pick Tetra Tech as their environmental person. So on my part of it, we had the procurement part, and then the work plan. The work plan that you submit with your application, it kind of becomes your roadmap. It outlines what you said you were going to do, how you were going to do it, and the timeline for getting there. So our role was to help make sure that that plan stays on track. And that means that we coordinate with the environmental consultants, help adjust timelines when it's needed, and then we make sure that the activities stay aligned with the EPA guidelines and requirements. Um, Part of project management also ensures that any changes to the work plan, that they're properly communicated and approved. So flexibility is often necessary with federal funding, and it always needs to be documented. The second part kind of comes in with the quarterly reporting and the financial reporting. PAD is working very closely with the Ballard County EDC. EPA requires regular reporting and to track the progress. And the reports are more than just a formality. It kind of tells the story of your project. And you'll work together to get the right information, document the milestones, and clearly communicate the outcomes that you have. Um, let's see, follow my notes here. Not only is this just a technical process like the assessments or cleanups completed, but it's also part of the community engagement efforts and any challenges that come up along the way. So, strong reporting keeps your project in good standing, and it also builds credibility for future funding opportunities. With the federal financial tracking part of it, there's very specific requirements. Every dollar needs to be tracked, documented, and aligned with your approved budget. And you, along the way, you'll assess that with setting up systems to monitor expenditures, ensure costs are eligible, and that you're prepared for any future audits that you might have to go through. So I would say that good financial management isn't just about compliance, it's also about protecting your investment and making sure that your project can continue without any delays or setbacks. If you'll go to the next slide, that part was, it's not the fun part, but it's required. But also, I'd like to focus kind of more on an encouraging part of it. Like they said before, you know, the brownfield is cleaning up and everything, but there's all these ideas and things to move forward with it. And once you have your application, all the work that goes into it and your narrative that gets written and all the ins and out of it, I really feel like that's kind of the hardest part that you've gotten behind you. And it's actually very easy to move that into other funding opportunities. So you've already done the hardest part. You built the vision, you identified the need, and you created the plan. So brownfield grants are often just the starting point. And then as your project progresses, you can begin layering in other resources, whether that's additional EPA funding, state programs, other federal opportunities to move from assessment into cleanup, and then from cleanup into redevelopment. So, as the Purchase Area Development District, our goal is also always here to help you to manage what you've been awarded, but also position you for what you've got coming up next. So I don't want you to lose sight on the fact that it not only takes a village to run these projects, it also sometimes takes a village to fund these projects. So don't get defeated in, you know, getting denied in certain areas. There are plenty of funding sources out there, and sometimes it takes multiple sources to make the project go through. So with that, my presentation part is done. So I think we can open it up to any discussion questions if you guys had any details or something that you would like more information on.
And if we have no audience questions yet, I have a few that came up during your all's presentation. And I'm going to actually stop sharing here so we can all look at each other, so we can be in community and conversation together. The first one that comes to mind is Jerry, right off the bat, you were like, we made some mistakes early on. And I'm really curious about what those early mistakes were and like how you learn from them and move forward.
Yes, of course, life's a learning experience. I think we all know that to begin with, but I don't think real early on, I never had dealt with even the limited time I'd been with economic development. I still had never really dealt a whole lot with government. Uh, my world was in insurance sales for 30 years. We just, you had rules, but you just moved forward. So I approached everything the same way. So, getting the building was imperative. And then having somebody to own it was imperative. But what we really should have found out first is how we're going to fund all of it. Because it all, we were smart enough to know we were going to have a huge expense. But it was all worthy because of what we wanted to do. So the lucky thing was that uh, Kevin was there to take it over when I made arrangements to get it. But then the EDC was very agreeable to help us out of that bind when we found out he couldn't own it and then get all the assessments and everything done. So we had to back up and punt. And again, I would just encourage anybody, and for me personally going forward with anything that I'm going to do, trying to help my community in the future, I'm going to do a little more research before I just start going in like a bull in a china shop. But that I think is the best learning experience that I ever got, really.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes, that kind of really bold, steadfast determination is like what pushes things forward, right? Because you weren't getting too deep in the weeds about like, oh, well, there's just going to be too much money, we can't do it. You're just like, nah, we're doing it. We're going to figure it out, which I think is really inspiring sometimes. I also want to say, Kevin, you had a really funny anecdote about when y'all walked into the building for the first time, and you were like, "Oh, are we in the same building?" And you saw so much inspiration like in the bones of the building. Um, and I think that like a lot of times, people kind of get desensitized to these buildings and the state they're in. Um, and I think it's crucial to keep dreaming about these sites, right? So I'm curious, like during that time when you were still dreaming, what was like the bigger kind of community attitude about the building?
Well, I mean, it was. Uh, by the way, I don't live in Barlow. I'm from a surrounding area. I grew up in Carlisle County. I live in McCracken County, but I'm 13 miles from Barlow, so it's still my area. But the community has just kind of given up on it. I mean, it had been. They tried to donate it to the city at one point, and the city just wasn't strong enough to take it because it was a big building, So keep kicking the can down the road kind of mentality, and then of course it's not that people were negative; it was obvious negativity. I mean, it was a big building with a roof falling in, so how could you be positive about that? You almost have to be foolish, And thankfully, I'm foolish, but anyway, the it's not. No one is against what we're doing at all. It's 100% do something. They're so appreciative. Now we got to get them involved, like Rachel said. Now it's their community. This is technically their building, and we're just kind of helping bring it back. But for me personally, my background is in entertainment, so we've done festivals and things, and we were kind of used to pulling into a parking lot that's empty, not even electricity, and kind of like the circus kind of thing. So when I see an empty parking lot, I see a vision immediately, like the circus or whatever. So when I saw this building, I thought, wow, brick and mortar, something that's not going to blow away with the wind. If it rains, we can be inside. So my vision immediately went to the entertainment side of things, and I grew up in a small community. My school is long gone; it burned down years ago. So to have a school with a history is another special thing for me to be involved. But yeah, that was for my vision of it. I was seeing the future of we're going to do something really cool with this, and today it's even more so after this with you guys. I'm pumped.
That's great. And
Is
also,
that
you heard it here first. Kevin is going to set up the big top. There's going to be juggling. There's going to be
Absolutely,
a full circus.
yeah.
You were kind of getting at my next question about like what the response from community has been, and I'd just love to hear from any of y'all. Like, I want to hear what they thought. Um, when like the initial idea was presented and then also what they think now that progress has been made.
I think the initial response was skepticism, of course, because it is such a big task. But on the opposite side of that, my wife and I had a small business going on at the time, and we had several of the old school members that actually come to that store bringing memorabilia, donating it because we'd actually said that we would love to be able to put old stuff in this building when we got it fixed. And we hadn't even started cleaning up, and yet they were already bringing us stuff, and we're having to store it. Kevin's storing most of that in his one of his storage buildings right now. And the other thing that I would really like for people to understand is that Kevin truly has, with his other team, started recording all of this on film with documentary stuff and is going to have that all on a website. And it's truly amazing to look at the film that he took the first time when nothing had been done to it, and then see the film that he's made not too long ago with probably 50% of the cleanup done. But I mean, it just, I walked into that very first time. I remember that day completely. I walked in it just 2 days ago, uh, and couldn't even believe it was the same building because it was so. Everywhere I went, it was clean. They were actually focused on one area at that time. I mean, it's almost completely clean, and that's not the end of the process, but the cleaning is, and it's just a fabulous thing. And I think once we can open up that gate and let some of the local people go in and really visualize for themselves that it is clean, I think then we'll really see some interest in helping us move forward.
Absolutely. And I feel like when you show that documentary inside of the building, in that space where the stage is going to be, I think there are going to be some tears shed. Uh,
Yep,
and it's going to be a really beautiful situation.
yep,
Um,
I agree.
it uh, it sounded like too that there was some mention, Jerry, of some other projects that you work on in the area that utilize, I think, some welders is maybe what was mentioned. And I'm just curious how this space, either currently or how you see it in the long term, like tying into bigger regional efforts.
Well, fortunately, a lot of our counties in the Purchase area, the 8 counties of Purchase of Kentucky, we all have some good training centers and stuff. Uh, but I guess it's happened all over the world. But here, we actually, uh, I insisted that my kids go to college because I thought that was the way they could make a living. And today, we don't have the trade people to do the work, and they now make more money than anybody from college. We kind of shot ourselves in the foot. And I think Kevin's idea of this repurpose, reuse, uh, putting that all together, and the mention of James Marine, which is one of the marine industries, and we're trying to put a river port in, but they have used all of the local trade schools and stuff. They teamed with them, a partnership with them, and they're not the only company, but to get their training through the system, to keep supplying them with their new help, new workers. So I think it'll be. I really think our school project will end up being one of those centers. Maybe not for the inland marines, but for some other business that is needed desperately.
Sure. And it sounds like there's an appetite for it in the region as
Yes.
well, that there's already kind of a culture that works in that way. So it hopefully can plug right in. Um, and I want to shift, Sherry, and ask you a question about, I know you've worked in communities of all sizes on projects of all sizes. Um, and I'd love to just give some space for you to maybe talk about some of like the common hurdles that you see smaller communities face, and any advice or examples of like how to overcome those.
Thank you so much for that question. Um, so, so many things to say, how to be concise. Um, so first and foremost, get your phase one environmental site assessment before you transact property. Always. And we've got such a great community with the Kentucky Brownfield program and the way that they support correcting some of those mistakes. And this community was absolutely not the first, second, or third to make that mistake. But they work with you. You know, the program's there to protect someone from contaminating property and then selling it to their cousin to get away from having to pay for what they did. So there's ways to work appropriately through that for communities to do what they need to do to be eligible for these funds to redevelop the property and get it cleaned up. So phase one first, say it a million times. That's a roadblock every time for large and small communities. Everybody, it's, you know, if you don't know, you don't know. You always have to have a visionary. There's always has to be someone that's just crazy enough to try and to have those conversations. Get in front of someone to have the conversation about what your vision is and what you're trying to do and pulling those resources together. The partnerships in your project, whether it be large or small, they're going to come in and out of the project over time. And I kind of usually show it in an illustration of a circle, and it has all these partnerships combined, and different ones will spin in and out all throughout the process. You know, there's times that you're going to need your private stakeholder to give you a little bit of funding to keep going. And, you know, I talked about how the community's like, yeah, right, whatever in the beginning. Well, now that they won this cleanup grant and the property's getting cleaned up, these entities are thinking, okay, now it might be time to help fund you to get that greenhouse roof on top or whatever the situation might be. You know, it definitely inspires and gets everybody riled up to, you know, keep the vision moving. Thinking about what are the other opportunities financially? And this is also a large and small situation because there's different situations in large and small communities and how to get the property redeveloped. Where are we going to get the money to actually redevelop? And so Rachel talked about that there are other opportunities out there, and there are best friends to brownfields like CDBG funding, like USDA grants that are very specific to help keep that ball rolling. So you always want to have a partner in place that can help achieve those goals and walk you along the path when you're like, I just don't know what's next. And that's most of the communities that we serve and bring into the Brownfield program to help them get to where they're trying to go. The Brownfield program, I call it an economic revitalization starter pack. You know, it's federal funding. People pay attention to it. When you're awarded it and you successfully manage it, it's going to open up many doors to keep things going. But you got to be ready to walk in those doors with the materials that you need. So you need partners like the Area Development District to help you get there and piece it all together. So, I mean, it all comes down to those partnerships. I couldn't say it enough. But I see most communities get stuck just because they don't know what could be next and they don't know who to talk to about it. So I just love how the Kentucky Brownfield program is working to be more robust and not just helping communities get that phase one and phase two assessment, because a lot of times that happens. It's like, okay, now what? I don't know. They're helping get that information out there to discuss what the opportunities could potentially be. So don't be afraid to ask the question. Where's the money at? Who do I talk to find the money? Where do we go next? Who's going to hold our hand for this next step now that the building's cleaned up? And I'm going to give a special shout out to Elise. I'm going to put you on the spot, girl. I see you in the chat with New Jersey Institute of Technology. So her group manages the technical assistance to Brownfield Communities program for all of Region 4, you know, that southeast part of the United States, to assist you in many different ways, much like Tyler and his team does locally in Kentucky. And they can all work together for you to listen to all of your vision and all of your positive things, and then also come back and say, but these are our gaps. Do you know how to close them? And groups like Tyler and Elise can talk to you about that, and then kind of boost up with people like Rachel with the Area Development District to come up with the plan for the next step. I'll stop there because I could go on, but
that was a great answer, and I think you get at that point that that a rising tide lifts all ships, and that, you know, at the end of the day, we're all sort of working towards a vibrant and a prosperous Kentucky, right? And to have that, we need our individual communities to be vibrant and prosperous. So yeah, we hopefully offer tools within our different professions to find that. And I want to shift. I think there's some stuff in the chat here. a really good question from Shelley that I think you're kind of butting up against, but I'd love to hear more specifics about this project. That says, as I understand, the EPA funding was used for cleanup expenses only. What funding will be used to execute the rest of the vision, or will some of that funding be used for that as well?
I guess I'll take this one. Um, the EPA funding is strictly for the cleanup. So the future vision and the ideas that Kevin and Jerry and them have, we'll look at community development block grants, like Sherry mentioned, um, even with EDA workforce opportunities. If there was some type of training with the welding, like Jerry was talking about, anything that creates jobs, DRA and EDA really support those initiatives. With the greenhouse area of it, where they're turning the cafeteria into that, you can look at USDA funds. There's even within the CDBG, those development block grants, there are different categories that it could fall underneath. So I think that, like Sherry said, whenever someone sees EPA and Brownfield, that they've already showed interest in it, other federal opportunities and funding seem to kind of fall in line because they all like to work together and they all like to be involved in on same projects. You do need to pay attention. Each one of those federal funding opportunities, they do have match requirements. And for example, you might be able to use CDBG money as a match towards an EDA grant, but EDA does not like to be used as a match towards a CDBG. So, just like Jerry said, without jumping in, if you truly sat there and laid them all out in front of you and just paid attention to how they can all work together and intertwine. And even with our state funds, we call it the grant program. Those funds help cover the match that smaller more rural communities are not capable of coming up with. So that's the whole purpose of the grant program, is to help smaller communities come up with those matching funds. So I just strongly encourage you to reach out to your area development district. That is what we are here to do, is to help you lay all those funding sources out and kind of help map them with what you see the future being as far as how it's going to serve the community.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Sorry, Jerry, I see you coming off mute. Do you want to add something?
I just wanted to shout out to Rachel that so everybody would truly know you are not alone in this if you will just take her advice and go to your ad. They are super and they have the answers and they'll help you excuse me, that stacking process is what they call it. It's critical. And small community like ours, we would never be able to afford the talent that we get for free from ad office. So take advantage of it.
Yeah, 100%. Big fans of the ad as well. And I think to Rachel's point, it's like there's a lot of funding in different places, but sometimes you got to get creative with it. And I also want to draw attention to what I think is a really great resource, which is the Federal Programs Guide. It's a guide that's updated every 2 years of all the federal programs and how they play with brownfields. So if you want kind of a quick and dirty guide, that's a really great resource to look at. That can, if you're like, oh, well, our ideas in workforce development, it might have some very specific items about direct funding or technical assistance within workforce development. So definitely utilize the federal programs guide as well. And then we also have some really great comments in the chat that I'm going to read out that are really beautiful. Teresa says, I'm very energized by your enthusiasm. I find it very interesting, the backgrounds that you have found a way to use it for brownfield remediation. I focused on brownfields as a topic for my master's degree, and I'm trying to get our county to look at potential brownfield redevelopment. Having a background in educational administration, I'm trying to see how my previous work will merge into making a positive change in our community. So I love that you're feeling energized, Teresa. Also, please reach out to me, Tyler McDaniel at Blueprint Kentucky, tyler.mcdaniel@uky.edu. I would love to talk to you and anyone in your county about how we can push this process forward and start to think about brownfield redevelopment. Can wrap in our partners at the state as well. But in that consideration that Teresa is looking for of how educational administration might factor into this work or make a positive change, do y'all have any encouraging words? You just go for it. Just get after it.
Well, just from my perspective, I fall from the layman side of all of this because again, the entertainment business is my main thing. But when you're building community, remember it's humans. We're in the human business, and communities are people that are trying to strive to live together. That's what makes it, by definition, that's what a community is supposed to be. So don't lose sight of that part of it. The building is just a place for us to use. That's a tool for our community. And above all, your government, it's your government. These are other people that have jobs, just like some of us have, to be successful in their job. It's not some monster out there that doesn't like you. The EP, we have records in history where we were with no EPA, and it was an ugly place in this country. So to be celebrated and reach out to those other humans that are just as likely to help you be successful as your next door neighbor. They really care about you. And this is proof of it right here with this. I've talked to most of these people from all over the country about this project, and it's amazing how much they feel like they're part of it already. We already connected. And that's another thing that the internet helps us do. So celebrate that and don't be shy. Let your negatives be positive. It's a problem to be solved. If you got a negative, if you got a building with the roof falling in, if the roof wasn't falling in, they wouldn't have donated the building to us. We would be having to come up with $1 million to buy it. So there's a negative that's a positive. So that's my take on all this is surround yourself connected with great, smart people. I'm always the dumbest guy in the room, and that's why I'm successful. So there you go. That's it. Just reach out, ask questions, just share your excitement with people. You'd be amazed who'll jump in there with you and show you the way.
Very true. Yeah. I think also important to remember we all want each other to succeed, right? And that piece, we talk about that a lot in our work. You're working with humans and everything is human scaled. And Teresa, we can also provide strategies for y'all to engage as residents and community members in collaboration with government. So, like for real, please reach out to me. I'm going to read this final statement here that I think is like the perfect place to land on, or to end on rather. So this is from Steve slash maybe Melanie. So this is not a question, but want to express our sincere appreciation for the vision and exceptional efforts of all members of the team of people that are revitalizing this property and what it will mean to the community. It says Melanie Wilson Kelly, daughter of Jim Wilson, sister of Steve Wilson, and mother of the mother of Christopher Kelly, the men that donated the building. So a lot of love coming from the folks who have a direct line to those who donated the building and live in the community that this will be impacting for the positive. So thank you for that. That's a perfect note to end on. And I want to also thank our panelists once again for their beautiful insights, their really hard work in all of this, and for taking the time today. And thank you to our attendees for taking the time today. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure that some of our local champions don't mind answering any questions if you have them. But I appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.